Hey guys, it's John here, and today I'm here to review Cocktail, starring Tom Cruise, 1988 film. And I'll say right off the bat, I think it's an okay, decent flick. I wouldn't say it's Tom Cruise's best, and in fact, I think Tom Cruise said himself a few years after the film that it's not a crown jewel in his filmography. Not going to understand that some, um, which he's not the problem, but I'll talk more about that. Now, when the film came out, it was a big hit. I mean, the budget, I believe, was around 20 million, and total gross, it made 170 million in 1988. Now think about that. That's a big hit. So it definitely made its money back. Um, but getting to the film, I mean, the plot, you have Tom Cruise's character Bryan, who wants to be successful. He wants a high-paying job, but it's not working out. So, he finds this bar, and you have this character Coughlin, who's a bartender, like the charismatic type A type of guy. And him and Tom Cruise, they hit it off, and pretty soon he hires Tom Cruise. He trains Tom Cruise to be a bartender, and there's some scenes where they have this banter back and forth, and of them working together, and that's where you have the Coughlin's Law, where he's talking about these laws and stuff, the sort of rules of bartending. And you have some subplots in there, like you have these supporting characters. You have Gina Gershon, she's in the film, more so in the first act. She plays a girlfriend of Tom Cruise. And you have the scene where Coughlin's making out with Gina Gershon. Tom Cruise sees it, punches Coughlin, and their friendship ends right there. And then a couple of years later, you see Tom Cruise's character, I think was it Jamaica? And he's running his own bar, and that's where you have Elisabeth Shue's character. She comes into the film, and her and Tom Cruise have a little bit of a romance, and that's where Coughlin, that character, comes back, and which is weird about, in regards to the film, because when the Coughlin character comes back in, they're friends again. I'm like, why would you be friends with this guy? After what he did, he's an asshole. Why would you? Again, I'll talk about that, and the Coughlin character has a woman now, Kelly Lynch from Roadhouse, who's this girl, that Coughlin's with, and she wants to get with Tom Cruise, she's that type of woman. So Kelly Lynch is in the film. And then, like I said, Tom Cruise and Elisabeth Shue, they have a romance, but Elisabeth Shue sees Tom Cruise with another woman. There's with another woman in the Jamaica or Bahamas, I can't remember. But Elisabeth Shue, she goes back to New York. Tom Cruise, is working for Coughlin again, pretty soon. And Elisabeth Shue, back in New York, she finds out she's pregnant. Tom Cruise wants to be a father. And I'll just say it here. Pretty much, in the end, the Coughlin character commits suicide because, he was full of pride and such. And, Tom Cruise, he's trying to rectify a lot of wrongs he did, and, trying to be a better person, not be this, shallow, not be selfish. So I get what the film was trying to do, the message and such, not think about money, not always be about the money and stuff like that. And that's kind of the plot. I know I kind of, it was a little bit scattered in describing the plot, but, again, I just think the film's okay, decent. Again, Tom Cruise is not bad in the film, but it's just, I'm watching it, and I'm like, why would you go back to this Coughlin character after what he did the first time around? I mean, the guy kissed your girl. Gina Gershon, great actress. I mean, the guy kissed your girl in front of you. You know, obviously, and again, you know, he's like that charismatic type, you know, thinking that he can get all the women in the world and the money. It's like, why would you go back to this guy? You know, why would you go back to this Coughlin character after what he did? You know, I know it's a couple of years later when you bump into him again, but still, you know, why would you go back to this asshole? um, and again, Tom Cruise is not the problem. I just think he's done, for me, he's done better movies. I love Collateral. You know, Mission Impossible. You know, I think he's done better. Top Gun. I would say he's decent here. He's not horrible. He's decent. Bryan Brown, who plays the Coughlin character, he's been in some films like FX, which I do have the film. I haven't seen the film and the sequel. And I didn't mind him in the film, but his character was just pompous and arrogant, and you know, it's just one of those things that I get what the film was trying to do, and by the end, I get what the film was trying to do, the message, so I understand that. I wasn't, you know, I'm not going to say he's bad. He's all right in the film, but it's just one of those things that the film, you know, when you get to the bartending scenes, like it starts off thinking, okay, it's going to be a, you know, a feel-good, you know, bar film, like a film about bartending, and then it just switches gears a lot. And that's my problems with the film. Like, it seems that there's this kind of, there's tone shifts in the film. You know, like in the first act, you think it's going to be a feel-good bar film, you know, about bartending and, you know, rapport between these two characters, and then it just switches to where, you know, this Bryan Brown's character is totally a douchebag. And then Tom Cruise's character ends up working for him again. I'm like, why? Why would you go back to this guy? Again, that's one of my problems with the film. But Bryan Brown's not bad. Elisabeth Shue, I like her in the film. You know, trying to get away from the glare. There you go. She's great. And Adventures of Babysitting, that's a great one. Great film. Hollow Man, she's great. Back to the Future Part 2, great actress. Kelly Lynch from Roadhouse, another great actress. And I know the one scene that people talk about a lot is her in a thong. So you do get Kelly Lynch in a thong in the film. You do see that. So you do have some good supporting actresses. Again, Elisabeth Shue, Gina Gershon, Kelly Lynch, good actresses. And you know, I was trying to think of the rest of the cast. But I mean, overall the cast is good. The direction, Roger Donaldson. I forgot what else he directed afterwards, but I know he did direct Cadillac Man with Robin Williams, which I think Robin Williams was one of the actors considered for Tom Cruise's role, but didn't get it. But we ended up, you know, doing Cadillac Man, which I like that film better. I like Cadillac Man. That's a funny movie. And he's done some other films that, you know, if I can look them up, maybe my computer, you know, if it doesn't give me problems. It has a tendency to freeze up sometimes. So, I'll look them up for you. Okay. So, the Roger Donaldson, I typed up the wrong Roger. There we go. So this guy, Roger Donaldson, also directed No Way Out with Kevin Costner. Again, I mentioned Cadillac Man, The Getaway, Species, Dante's Peak. That's a good flick. The Bank Job with Jason Statham. The November Man with Pierce Brosnan, so he's directed quite a few movies. So, yeah, he's directed quite a few films. No Way Out I haven't seen. I've seen that film around at like pawn shops and such. Again, I do like Cadillac Man. Dante's Peak. That's a good flick. Good disaster flick. And, you know, I think he did an okay job. I mean, it's just, I think some of the script, and I more so refer to the tones of the script, you know, the tones of the film, you know, question, like some of the character decisions. Again, I keep mentioning this, but, you know, why go back to that Coughlin character? You know, why is Elisabeth Shue going back to Tom Cruise after what, you know, I don't know, it's just, again, I know it's just nitpicks. It is nitpicks, but, and the writers, screenplay by Hedwig Gould. I want to see what else this guy has done. I'm just curious. Alright, so the guy who wrote the screenplay is Hedwig Gould, who also wrote the screenplay for One Good Cop. I think that's a drama with Michael Keaton. Rolling Thunder, before this. But he didn't go on to write too much. And, I don't know. I think the script is okay. But, you know, aside from all that, you know, the nitpicks and such, the film does have a good soundtrack. I will mention that. You know, Kokomo by the Beach Boys. You know, that song, Don't Worry, Be Happy. That's a good song. Addicted to Love, another good song. Does have a very good soundtrack. And in fact, it's funny because I think Kokomo, for the film, was nominated for a Golden Globe, or I think won the Golden Globe, while Tom Cruise got Worst Actor. I think he got a Razzie for this one. So that's kind of weird. I think I'm right there. If I'm wrong, correct me. And some good locations, you know, where they filmed it at in New York, and, you know, good use of locations. And, you know, some of the dialogue by the Coughlin character, more so in the beginning, you know, I didn't mind. So overall, you know, yes, you know, I have some problems with the film. I think it's a decent movie. It's not Tom Cruise's best. I prefer other Tom Cruise films. And I know some people out there really, you know, like if you really enjoy the film, you know, I've heard some people say it's a guilty pleasure or it's a mindless 80s movie, you know, and that's fine. Like if you love the film, that's fine. But I just think it's okay, decent. You know, that's just what I feel. But anyways, that's my review of Cocktail with Tom Cruise. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you later.